Eccomi qua, buongiorno. Allora, adesso fra un attimo spunta anche Anna Melishvilli in diretta da Tbilisi e intanto mi fa compagnia Luca Duceschi che in realtà è la persona che ci ha permesso di entrare in contatto con noi.
Buongiorno Michele.
È a Trento, suppongo.
Bressanone in questo momento.
Bressanone. E un avviso ai naviganti, l'intervista è arrivata, adesso la faccio entrare, e sarà in inglese, perché non so se Anna, avendo studiato un po' in Italia, parla italiano, ma credo non sia sufficiente per quello che dobbiamo fare. Bene, quindi it's gonna be in English, ladies and gentlemen. Se avete domande da fare, scrivetele, non scrivetene a raffica, non iniziate con le solite polemiche sulla chat, perché la polemica sulla chat, come dire, distrae e impedisce di vedere le domande serie. Grazie. Hello. Welcome, Anna, and thanks for taking your time to be with us.
Hi, Anna.
Hello, hi.
So Anna was, so she got in touch with Luca because she was a student in the master program in cognitive science at in Italy, in Trento or Rovereto. I can't quite understand what's the
Rovereto, yeah.
official name, if it is Rovereto, the official name of Trento. Okay, and she was writing yesterday, but she seems fine. She had a little bit of poisoning. So the news a few hours ago is that the bill against which the people have been protesting on the streets and the police has tried to push back in the last few days has been withdrawn. Is that correct? Is it done? Is it a success? Is the risk over or what?
Well, technically, that is what the government said, that they would withdraw the bill. But in reality, it is just a manipulation, because legally, you cannot withdraw the law or the bill that you already accepted with the first hearing. So what they have to do now is they have to have a second hearing and they have to annul the law then and there. So it is not legally possible to withdraw it now. The government said that just to make us think that we won and just to stop us from going outside and defending our constitutional right to say that we just don't agree with what you're trying to do and to do it peacefully. And we tried to do it peacefully, but they had other plans. So to answer your question, technically that's what they said, but legally they can't and will not be doing that anytime soon. And they just did it to just win some time for themselves and push the law again later on.
And what do you expect? So let's see what's a bit behind the law. So in case people don't know, what is the law you want to tell? The law was perceived as a censorship and pushed or supported by Russian influence or Russian pressure. The law created, if I understand it correctly, create a kind of request to mandatory, how can I say, prescription list, because every news organization or foundation or non-governmental organization that would be active in Georgia and had financing from abroad above 20%, is that correct? 20%?
Yes.
Of their total budget would be put on this special list of foreign agents or something like that. So what was exactly the
Yes, what you said is absolutely correct. So this is a law that is to make people sign up as foreign agents. It is adapted from the Russian law that has been accepted in Russia to make it even more totalitarian, and the results were absolutely horrible when they did accept it in Russia. What it actually means is that every single, even a person, not just the NGOs or organizations, even people like individuals who receive more than 20% of their income from a foreign country have to register themselves as foreign agents. And we can agree that agent is it has a very negative connotation. It sounds like an enemy, like a traitor. It does not have a positive connotation. So this is done on the basis of if the government will want to get rid of their opponent, get rid of an NGO that is against them, that does not agree with them, they can easily say that, oh, you're an agent, you receive this and this, from this country. We do not trust you, and you might be the enemy, and you might be anti-governmental, and you might be anti-democratic. And they can use this leverage against any person they want, any organization they want, any NGO they want, and put them behind bars, literally put them behind bars. The law is terrifying since our government is saying that it is to make everything more transparent, which is not truth, because everything is already transparent. Every single organization, every single NGO has to have an audit, check all of their finances, and they have to make it very official, and you and I can find it online. Everything is super transparent now, and no foreign organization will fund you unless you do the financial stuff clearly and unless it's transparent. So what our government is saying, that they're trying to make everything more transparent, to make everything more democratic. It is truly a lie. And they just want to later use this as leverage against the people who don't agree with them. They can just detain people, say, you're an agent, you receive your funding from abroad. For instance, I studied in Italy, right? And I was being funded. I did not pay tuition. I had a scholarship. So I would be considered as an agent. I would have to sign myself up as an agent. I worked for foreign companies. I received my salary from foreign companies. I would have to register as an agent. And later on, I would have to be very careful on what I say out loud, where I go, what I protest, because at any second, anyone from the government could use that against me, say that you're getting funded from a foreign country. You might be an agent, you might be an enemy. So it is a very, very dangerous law. And it's like 5 pages. And if you read it detail by detail, it has even more scary parts inside of it. For instance, it literally promotes telling on other people. So if you find out that someone has this income from a foreign country and they're not registered as foreign agents, you can tell the government, hey, this person is doing this, this. And that is a classic USSR move. And it is very dangerous for the democracy and for the democratic future of our country. So that is like a rough outline of.
Okay. So can you describe what's the current political equilibrium in the country? So why is so the government is, in your view, under pressure, or is the majority parties are voluntarily doing that? So why is this thing happening? I mean, there were issues also in the very recent past, poisoning of the former candidate that had to run abroad, then he came back, and so on. So can you describe a bit, say, the last, you start maybe from the 2008 war with Russia that took away part of the country?
So after the war, in 2008, after 4 years, our government changed. And the government became, they're called the Georgian Dream. Believe me, they're anything but a dream, but that's another topic. So they were initially founded by an oligarch who is technically, he's Georgian, but he has been living in Russia for years and years and years. And he made a lot of money there and he became rich and he came back. And he founded this party, Georgian Dream. And they have been in the government since 2012. In the beginning, they didn't do anything suspicious right in the beginning. They were playing nice. But for the past years, for the past several years, they have been doing things, pro-Russian things, low-key supporting Russian government or Putin. And it is unbearable. I have been protesting at least something for 6 years. For 6 years, we constantly have something to protest against our government. For example, in 2019, head of the parliament actually invited a Russian minister who is a communist, who does not want Georgia to be an independent country. He does not want Georgia to be a democratic country. He wants Georgia to be a part of Russia, and he's very clearly stating this. He invited him over to our parliament, let him sit in the parliament's chair and lead the session in Russian, which is which is, I don't know what, it's betrayal. And we had to protest that as well. Our government has been announcing, they have been making very wrong announcements about the Ukrainian war as well. They have been actively making these neutral comments. The war, they actually stopped a plane from going to Ukraine. People, just volunteers, regular citizens, wanted to fly to Ukraine to help, and our government did not let the plane go. So the people had to literally cross borders with buses. They had to go by land. Our government has been trying to be either very neutral or low-key try to support Russia in the current war as well. And as for the Georgian, it is very embarrassing for me to talk about this, and I'm ashamed. But I think the world and Ukrainian people heard us roar when we went outside to protest that this is not what people think, and this is just the government. So these are just several of what our government has been doing and why me and my friends and people around me think that they are very much pro-Russian. And the fact that they're doing all of this is because they are under pressure. They are scared because it has its foot on their neck, and they can't do much about it, I guess. They're scared to do much about it. Also because the person who founded their party, this oligarch, Bidzina Ivanishvili, he has all of his money, everything from Russia. He's good friends with Putin. You can imagine how bad the situation might be. So
Like I
Anna,
want to ask you something.
Anna, sorry, if I may, my understanding is that the riots were clearly facing like two opposite parties, like the police on one side and you guys on the other. But according to you, is the police forces are all compact in supporting the government and fighting the riots, or do you think there is some sort of I don't know, breaking line in the police consensus?
Unfortunately, I think that all of the military and police forces are with the government. They were robocops, special forces, chasing after unarmed people yesterday and the day before yesterday. They have been throwing pepper spray, tear gas, and water cannons at unarmed people who are not even trying to do anything bad. So they are all with the government, unfortunately, right now. But there have been some rumors, and I cannot confirm that they're 100% true, but some battalions, some military battalions from different regions of Georgia are trying to step away and not be with the government anymore, and they don't want to be involved with the government anymore. But these are not 100% confirmed. But the police has always been on the side of the government, unfortunately, and they have been shooting at us even yesterday, the day before yesterday, like the rubber bullets, and they have been aiming at people to shoot in their heads. I don't know if you know, but when you shoot a rubber bullet, you're supposed to hit on the ground and then it's going to reflect up, and when it hits you, it's not as painful. They had been aiming at people's faces and aiming at people's eyes, and people have gone blind because of it, even the day before yesterday, which is barbaric, and it is not okay for a civilized country for 2023. It is not acceptable.
Is it connected to, let's say, the intensity of the clash? The riots, from our perspective, seem to be quite bad. You know, Molotov cocktail bombs being thrown at the police and fireworks. I've seen a couple of not scary things, but for sure the riot is not exactly, you know, low key. What is your interpretation of the escalation of the violence that we seem to observe on videos?
So there have been some fireworks that had been thrown from the citizens. We did not have Molotovs, though. I don't think anyone had Molotovs, because also before you get to the rally, there are policemen on the lower streets, and they actually stopped me and my friends yesterday, and they looked inside the bags just to see if we had anything on us. So I don't think anyone had Molotovs. It was just fireworks, all of the flames and everything that were in the videos. most of the people who are there, they're trying to peacefully just say that we don't accept what you're doing and we don't want you to do this. And usually it starts off very quiet, very peacefully, and then at some point there's this tension that comes out of nowhere, and then the robocops show up, like an intense amount of robocops, an intense amount of tear gas, an intense amount of water cannons, and yeah, I mean, the people, then they're left unarmed and everything, and then it just becomes ugly because they don't know what to do. There are all these robocops with the special gear and with the water cannon, the gas and everything, and you're just left there defenseless. So yesterday it got pretty ugly with the riot. People started running away, coming back. I don't know. I'm pretty sure, and yeah, I can say this with 100% certainty, that they're using against the people, it is not proportional to the aggression that they might be getting from the people. It is not even close to being proportional. There are videos. Well,
Anna, hold on. Let's try. When were the last elections?
The last elections were in 2000, and now it's 2023. In 2000, I was not here. I was in Italy, so it was 2020, I assume. Yeah, I could not vote.
And how would you evaluate what happened and the turnout and the electoral results?
That's also another hard question, because we don't actually have another poll that is strong enough to overcome the strength or the supporters of the current government, because the only opposing party, the only one that is strong enough, they are from the previous government, and the previous government has sins of their own, and a lot of people in Georgia don't want them back. There are some of the people that are associated with the previous government. There are the ones that are actually a part of it. But the sad truth is that a lot of people just don't want them back, because they did make mistakes, very bad mistakes. And this is not helping our situation now, because it has been 12 years since we have had this government. And for 12 years, we have been straining away from the West. We have been going away and further away from.
So you're describing a situation that reminds one of the situation in Ukraine back before what the Russian propaganda described as the putsch, no, the Maidan.
Yes.
Yes. You're describing a situation in which you seem to think that a large part of the population, at least in the main city, the capital, and probably in the other, Georgia is not such a big country, does not recognize itself in any of the political parties, because for a reason or another, either they're pro-Russian or financed by oligarchs that are friends of Putin, or they have ruled the country in a corrupt and bad way. And we have these things like poisoning the previous president that resembles a lot, right? What happened also in Ukraine.
Yeah,
can you try carefully to explain why would the situation like that be? Why would there not be a party that is credible and in your view? Because from an outside observer, it's strange to see a country where none of the parties go well and people are rioting against the proposed law. That's the kind of stuff that fuels the view that these are all minority riotings that are financed by America and secret agents and things
NATO.
NATO. Okay.
I think one of the main reasons is the fact that we are still a post-Soviet country. So after the USSR fell apart, Georgia was left in ruins, and the government that came after was absolutely horrible. It was bad.
You're referring to Shevardnadze.
Yes, I'm referring to Shevardnadze. I personally was born and raised.
Shevardnadze was obviously part of the nomenclatura, was a member of the Politburo, was the foreign minister with Gorbachev. This is for the Italians. Se c'è qualcosa che non capite precisamente, chiedete, però dovete metterlo per iscritto, quella è la parte che... all right, so that was, but on the other hand, in 2008, your government did, or your army did fight against the, so there is a degree of sense of independence. How do we square these two elements?
So after Shevardnadze, like the country was in ruins, and I think this destabilization after the fall of the Soviet Union, that was followed by the Rose Revolution by Saakashvili, all of these major events created a huge gap between the generations. So for instance, between me and my parents' generation and some generations between us as well, it created different worldviews for different generations, and it became impossible to communicate for the people between each other, between the generations, in the family. It became almost impossible to stay on the same side, on the same thought, on a very important topic for the country, for instance. So after the Rose Revolution came, it was, in my opinion,
let me say in Italian, dice quella su queste rivoluzioni colorate, la Rose Revolution, la rivoluzione rosa, è appunto questa una serie di proteste non dissimili di indipendenza dall'URSS avvenute in Georgia. Please.
So the Rose Revolution, that it actually saved the country in a way, because that government, even though they made horrible mistakes, they were very much pro-Western. They had very correct direction that they were going towards. In 2008, they were the government that actually fought, and then that actually went against Putin. So they really made him mad, actually. And I think all of the things that happened from 2003-4 to 2012, they were a lot of things. There were a lot of things that pushed Georgia into the Western world and pushed it towards being more democratic. But again, since the generation before us and generations before us were raised completely differently. There were people raised in the Soviet Union, then there were people who lived during Shevardnadze, and then came this man who wanted everything Western, and it was very foreign for Georgians. It created a lot of gaps that still exists, and it is hard to communicate between people. It is hard for me to communicate with some of the people that are my age as well, because of their on politics, of course. Because after Saakashvili, we had the Georgian Dream, and they are having a whole other direction that they're creating, and they're manipulating a lot. They're using the church, they're using Christianity to manipulate people and say that the Western world is sinful, and they have all of these sinners in them, and you don't get involved in them. And when you have
Russian propaganda, same kind of a technique, right?
Exactly, same pattern.
Okay.
Well, but that's obviously that's a pattern that we understand. Well, so what you're describing, though, is a bit of a complicated problem, and probably there's a big difference between the countryside and the city.
More or less. I think now, since I mean, it is funny, but with the help of the internet, it is easier to get access to a lot of information. And I think that most of the younger generation, that they call Gen Z, I think they're better at filling these gaps out. And I don't think they will have as much problem. But today, I think one of the main problems is that the different generations were raised and they were forced to live in completely different realities. And now it is hard for us to grasp onto something, or to find someone who is worthy enough to be in the government, who will serve the people. And that is the purpose of the government, to serve the people.
Anna, if I may interrupt you, sorry for that, but could you give us an idea about what's your take on the distribution of the population? It's 50% pro-government, 50% against, because it's hard for us to understand that from here, and especially for Italian viewers?
It is hard to say because a lot of elections are being forged. They pay people. They actually pay people. They give them food. In some of the villages, people lack food sometimes, and they give them food so they will just vote for the government again. Some people are just pro-government. They just think that way. I know that. I would like to think that majority does not want this government, especially judging from the protests as well. But it is hard to say exactly. I don't know where to find the exact statistics because, again, the elections are being forged. People are being forced into voting for the government. And I do live in this bubble where I have people around me that think like I do, more or less at least. But it's not just me and my friends and my family. There are so many other people out there. So it is very hard to talk about the exact statistics. I wish that at least now, for the elections, most people are going to just get tired and vote against the government. But it is hard to say. The only opposing party that gets close to getting similar votes as the government is the opposing party, or the people who are associated with the previous government. But again, for that, they have their own sin.
So for people that are listening, Georgia is very small. It's a small country, where Russia ends there. There are three countries that are like a buffer between Russia and Turkey.
Yes.
3 million people, according to Wikipedia. So just to
3
give a number.
million something,
Yeah.
right? Of which 1 million lives in I can't pronounce the Tb for an Italian is very complicated, as you know. Tbilisi. How do you say properly?
Tbilisi.
Tbilisi, right. Tbilisi has about 1 million people, if I understand.
Yeah, right.
So it's very large compared to the size of the country.
Yes, we have around 1.2 million people living in Tbilisi, and there are like 3.8 million Georgians in total.
Right.
And there are
about a third of the population live in the capital.
Yes, because everything is centralized in the capital, the economic center, the political center, mostly everything.
You're next to Armenia and Azerbaijan that are fighting. And as people may or may not know, Azerbaijan is supported more by Turkey, and Armenia instead is supported more by the Russian. And Georgia is just in the middle. So it's obviously a part of land and on which, given their imperialistic view, the Russian government wants to put its hand. So that's the situation. It's a small country, okay, which the capital. Is there universities somewhere else in the country apart from the capital or not?
Yes, there are two other major cities. One of them is called Batumi. It is a seaside port.
Batumi? Yeah, it's on the Black Sea, right?
Yeah, and they have several universities there. One of them is Marine University, and the other one is in Kutaisi, which is also in the western part of Georgia. It is closer to Batumi than to Tbilisi, and they have several universities there. So most of the universities are located in the capital, and everything that you can think of is located in the capital. They did move the parliament to Kutaisi for several years, but then they took it back to Georgia. So,
Anna, may I ask you something else?
Sure.
You left for a couple of years. Of course, you stayed in touch with your friends and family. But when you went back, you probably had this vantage point of view. Like, how did you find your country changed after a couple of years in Italy? And did you see some sort of escalation in the last 2 years? Because now we have riots, but before these riots, we were not hearing much from Georgia. Did you see some sort of growth of the consensus, or the other way around? How do you describe the last 4 years?
This breaks my heart to say it, but it felt like I came back to the same place I left it, even worse, because COVID also affected very badly on our economics, and lari, our Georgian currency, was destroyed when I came back. everything was so much more expensive than it used to be when I left. Everything was 3 times as more expensive. I used to tell my friends in Italy to come visit me because Georgia is so beautiful and cheap. But when I came back, it was crazy. Our economics was ruined. And with the riots and protests, everything was the same. And our government had been doing even worse things than they used to. I mean, their announcements about the war, they were just, at some point, I was disgusted. I was embarrassed. It's not something that you can say. It was just unacceptable. They were openly being either neutral or low-key supporting Russia. So in every sense, Georgia was the same as I left it in 2019. And it literally breaks my heart. And every single day, I see better days when we protest, or maybe we get to maybe them to withdraw the bill even for a bit. But mostly it has been the same, and nothing major has changed for the better. And it just breaks my heart because I don't know, a lot of global events also had an effect on Georgia. But still, we have the same government. They're doing the same things. They're trying to destroy science and art in the country. They're trying to detain artists, and they are trying to release scientists from their jobs. And they're like worldly known scientists, anthropologists, archaeologists who are amazing at what they do. They're amazing scientists, and they're being discriminated on the political basis, because they're political.
What was the inflow? How would you estimate the inflow of Russian people, young people running away from the draft, from the conscription in the last 7-8 months?
We had a lot of, and they were not just people. They were just regular older people as well. And I find it very dangerous for several reasons. But the main reason is the pattern that I see, the pattern that has been going on since forever. Russia is pushing their citizens in a country that later they want to occupy, and then Putin comes out. He's like, I'm going to defend my citizens, whatever it takes. And then they take Crimea, and then they go to Donbass, and then they're going to come for Georgia. And they already came for Georgia once. And they have been doing this. It's like a little play, like a theater play. It never changes. It keeps doing the same thing over and over again. And it was extremely scary for that reason, because they did this in Georgia in the 19th century. Before that, it is what they do. And this
has it changed? Sorry, Anna, but has it changed the everyday life? Like, in your perception, do you see like there's more Russian spoken among the, in the streets of Tbilisi, or do you see changes like that you can report in terms of Russian presence?
Yes, absolutely. Now I think it is a little bit better, but in the beginning, it was hard to hear Georgian on the streets. And I'm not exaggerating. It had an effect on the prices of the houses. The housing was crazy. The prices you have to pay to rent a place in the capital is insane. And students that are from other regions of Georgia, and they have to come here to study, some of them have to rent. They're unable to do it because it is so expensive, because an average Georgian has a very low income, especially if they don't live in the capital, because you cannot get as much money outside of the capital because the economical center is here. So some students were left outside of the university at some point. It was devastating to see that. I do understand that is a natural process. When the demand increases, the price increases, but it was devastating.
And in your opinion, this increase in prices has been mostly driven by the presence of Russian citizens coming with, I assume, more economic means and renting houses?
Yes, absolutely. And also, like, there were several million of them that they crossed the Georgian border. Like, I think it was
millions. It would mean that changing
millions. I would be careful. Probably not millions, but
that's
why. I mean, the estimates that are around are in the tens of thousands. maybe in the hundreds of thousands, but not millions.
The
Not
amount
even
that
a million.
the Georgian border were above a million and something that crossed the border. And a lot of them stayed in the capital. Some of them they went to Armenia. I don't know where they went. They also found this life hack. They would just cross the Armenian border and cross it back. So their visas would restart, or after I think they can stay for 6 months or something. And they would just cross the border and cross it again just to make the visa just start over with the countdown. But there was a huge amount of Russians that really intensively came to Georgia. And I'm sure some of them were just running for their lives. But I'm also scared of the people who were not and who are actually against of our country, independent and so on and so forth. They started buying houses here. They registered their businesses here. And it is starting to look like something they had done before, and that is why we're so terrified of what is going on.
Is it possible that, I mean, the first question I should ask is actually, do you see a lot of Georgians of your generation or the generation before trying to leave the country, or Georgian citizens seem to be like more willing to stay to fight this, or to what is the balance of people leaving the country and staying to, I don't know, find a better way, rebuild the country or something?
There are definitely more people trying to leave. First of all, it's students who want to study abroad. Also, then we have people who cannot find decent jobs here because also the market for jobs is not very good, and they have to go to immigration to work outside of the country. I think a lot of people are still hopeful, and they're not running away from the country yet because it is so bad and I cannot live here anymore. I don't think we're there yet. The people who are leaving and the fact that more people are leaving now, I don't think, and I don't want to attribute all of that just solely to the fact that our government is so bad. I really don't want to think that's the case, because most people.
What is the feeling among the people that you know? Let's say that your generation, you probably have a better understanding of the people around your age. What is the, I don't know, mentality that you can report?
For now, we're ready to fight. We want to fight our country back, but sometimes we have days, even I have days when we say we need to run, but it's just something we just say out loud, me and my friends and people around me. And I don't think anyone is actually going to do it now. And we just want to stay here and keep our country and fight for our country. But I don't know what will happen in the future. For now, I think the younger generation, me and my friends, people around me, my family, we are ready to be here and fight for our country, to live peacefully in our country. Even though we do sometimes say that, hey, we need to run, this is so bad. But it's just something.
Anna, but you know, I don't want to give advice. You guys do whatever. But it seems that what you're describing is a bit more complicated situation than addressing it with the street fight, because you're describing a situation which, first of all, is a huge inflow of Russians within the country. So either there is a government decision to push them back, or if the numbers are even half of what you said, you know, even if there is a million in a country of slightly less than 4 million, that's an increase of 25% of the population. It's a very big amount. And with money and everything, because probably the people that run away from Russia are that were better off, those that could afford running away. And you're describing also an intergenerational big difference. So where do you think a movement can go if there is not a political organization that coordinates that? That's the part I don't understand.
That is
why is that not a party or a political organization that at least represent these young people?
There are several, I would say, decent opposition parties that one could support and I could support myself. But they're just not strong enough. Young people will support them and do support them, but then we have the other generation that doesn't. So that's the gap that I've been talking about. We cannot agree on one thing because there are certain worldviews, the parties that I might have that my father might not like, and his generation might not like. So it is becoming harder, and that's what we are trying to. We were talking about this at work today, actually. Who are we going to choose, and how are we going to choose them? Who are we going to trust? It is still very blurry for us as well, and it does not sound very promising. But
do you see the riots? Sorry, Anna. Do you see the riots continuing for the next days, or you think it's going to calm down a little bit if they pass this other abolishing bill or something? What's your take on the future days?
It all depends on what happens today as well, because today there's a protest as well. Because it's not just that law that they're trying to have. There's another one where they are trying to make students go to the army by force. And by army, I mean they're not training anyone with the guns or anything for the war. They are making them stand as guards in prisons. And they're calling it army service. So currently in Georgia, if you are not enrolled at the university and you're a male and you're below 27 years old, you have to go to this mandatory military service for 1 year, which does not pay you. It pays you 80 lari a month, which is nothing. You can't even buy normal food with that. And you have to stay a guard at a prison or somewhere else. You're basically losing a year of your life for this. They're not even training people. So now what they're trying to do is that they're trying to take boys who are not just not enrolled at the university, but also who are already students. And they said that they would randomly choose every month or every year a group of students that will have to leave their studies or pause their studies. I don't know what they're going to do about the studies, to go to this mandatory military service, which is not going to teach them anything. They're not getting ready for the war. They're not getting ready to use the guns or anything. It's just wasting their time. So then there's this another law that we do not like. So
but this law you're talking about it's already in the works. It's already being written, and they are already discussing it in the parliament. Yeah. Or
they have not had the hearing yet, but they announced that they want to have a hearing, and they are going to have a hearing about it. I think March 11th. So big issue that we have. As long as they keep as long as they keep up with our demands, and our demands are that they withdraw this horrible new bill about the foreign agents. They release the people that they had detained and beat up brutally during the past 2 days. There are 133 people who are currently detained, and we don't know where they are. They are kept practically hostage somewhere, and they're beaten up. I don't know if all 133 of them, but a lot of them are brutally beaten up, and there are videos how the people are being handled. And we also want the other law about the mandatory military service to just not happen, because it is not fair. It is so not fair. So as long as we come to some agreement peacefully, there are not going to be any more rallies and fireworks on the main street of the city.
But you think it's more likely to continue? Sorry, Michele.
Most probably, at least for this week, today, tomorrow. I really hope it's not gonna be brutal today. I really hope so. But really, at this point, I don't know what they're thinking of. I don't know what they're trying to do, because now they can do anything. They have the guns, they have the military, they have the police, so they can do anything they want to. I don't know.
What's your view of Turkey? What's the view of Turkey within the country? It's sitting on the other side. Wait, hold on, Anna. The connection's gone down a bit. Hold on. Let's
Hear
make
me?
sure. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Perfect. In Turkey,
Go ahead.
I think we have some issues.
No, but the video is coming through okay. So
Yeah.
please speak.
you can hear me?
Yeah.
I didn't hear the last question. What do I think about Turkey in which sense?
Well, it's the other side. There is something here that is how can I say, very visible. Georgia is a small country with a strong national identity in a part of the population, but it has a much bigger country on north and that has been ruling it for a long time until the 90s, and then other big country to the south, and other two countries on the other border that are kind of fighting on and off war. So it's quite obvious that all these countries are trying to manipulate in a form or another and have a role in your internal politics. So I was just curious if you perceive Turkey as a support, another menace, totally indifferent. I mean, what's the view?
On Turkey, at this point in history, in the past several years, I think Turkey has been more or less neutral towards us, as towards Georgia. I cannot say the same on Armenia and Azerbaijan, but as for Georgia, it has been pretty much mostly neutral. We have not had any conflict or conflict of interests, and I think, yeah, the main problem that we have, the main enemy, and I can use this word, I think, is the Russian government, because they are the ones that have been trying to steal our lands, and they have stolen 20% of our country, and they have tried it again and again. They tried this propaganda that they're pushing on us through our government, and I don't see Turkey. I could not evaluate Turkey in the same light. But I think the situation is different with Armenia and Azerbaijan, and I think we're also, even though it is so close to Georgia, we're literally on the border for both countries. It has not affected our country as such. I feel very bad for the war that has been going on in those two countries, for all of the conflict and all of the horrible things that had happened in the past year, because people died there as well. But it did not affect Georgia as a country as a whole, their conflict or Turkey trying to get involved. So I think our main problem is still the government of Russia and Putin and everyone involved with them, who are trying to just get a hold of Georgia, get a hold of the access to the Black Sea from every side possible, and then, I don't know, to get a hold of the whole South Caucasus part of the Caucasus Mountains.
Lena is asking about this very controversial half Ukrainian, half Georgian. What is his? Actually, I don't even know what his citizen situation is. Saakashvili, that has been very good. What's your view of the whole story of this very controversial person?
You mean the former president Saakashvili, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I can't pronounce it right. How do you pronounce it? Really?
Saakashvili. It's pretty good how you.
Shvili.
Pretty cool. That's another very complex, because Saakashvili was the leader. He was the president of the previous government that a lot of people have hard feelings with still today, and they have every right to. So he went to Ukraine, and he started being a politician there. And as I know, as a Georgian, I'm not sure about the Ukrainians, but as I have read and heard, he was beloved there as well by the people. He got into a lot of trouble and crazy stories there as well as in Georgia. And now he came back during the elections, and I still cannot explain why he decided to do this. Did someone tell him to come back, that they would have his back, and then they ditched him? Or did he think that he would come back to the same Georgia that he left? I don't know what it was exactly. I don't know what made him decide it, but it was a wrong choice because he has crimes. He committed a lot of crimes that he would be detained for, obviously, if he came back to Georgia. And I don't know what it was. It was a very risky move that he took, and it is still, for me, I cannot tell for sure. There are a lot of theories that sound like conspiracy theories, but could be true, or I don't know. And after he got detained, he started a hunger strike. He didn't eat. He lost a lot of weight. He's anorexic at this point. He has been very sick, and he has been treated not very nicely, which is not humane, and it's not okay. Doesn't matter what kind of a criminal he is. And there are two sides to that story. There are both sides to why would someone defend him and say that you have to treat him like a human being, which I agree with. But also he did commit some crimes, very bad crimes, and he at some point would have to face the consequences. So it is unclear to me why he decided to come back. It was very unsafe for him. And also the fact that he got into the country without anyone noticing, without the government noticing. He came into the country, he came to Batumi, the seaside city, and he just recorded a video saying, hey, I'm here, come and get me, or something like that. And he posted it on Facebook or something.
Yeah,
He just,
yeah. But it's also very strange. Yeah, I wanted to again, let's not get here. It would be interesting to have somebody that is a true expert, because the behavior of this person is very strange.
it is.
It involves also there is a mixture between Ukraine and Georgia, change of wives, strange announcement, use of social. I mean, there's all kind of
We do really need an expert.
it's a mysterious subject that has managed to be, on the other hand, a protagonist of your political and Ukrainian life for what, 20 years now.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
He has been on the scene as a protagonist, as a main character on both Georgia, and he's been president twice, right?
He was elected twice, yes, since he came with the revolution first, and then he was, then the Georgian Dream came in 2012.
Let me actually ask another question that is more sociological, if you want, but to give you is my impression wrong, or the political life, the political environment in Georgia, people playing active political life, is very small at the very end? These are all people that know each other, they live in Tbilisi, and have to do with more or less the power around government and so on in Tbilisi.
Since Georgia is a very small country, your idea is pretty close to reality. Yeah, it's pretty much like that. Maybe not exactly, but yeah, we are a extremely small country. And also, there are a lot of people who don't even live here anymore. They are registered here, around 3.8 million, but a lot of people are outside of the country in immigration. So in the end, it does come down to relatively more or less similar groups of people, because the country is just, everyone knows everyone, and not exactly, but a lot of people are just, we're just going around circles with the same or similar kinds of people, even in the politics, in every show business, in every sphere.
So do you think that this movement will produce maybe a new party, or it will just be a popular movement against these various laws? Do you think this is might be the start of a new political organization, more independent from previous oligarchs, or not?
We do have several of those who are absolutely independent from previous people, who are not associated in any way with the previous people or the current government, but people don't trust them as much. They're not as popular, let's say. There are people who have these parties, and actually during past years, because our government is not liked that much, people have been creating different parties for different good reasons. There are the Greens, who are like supporting one thing. There's this party called Girchi, which means pine cone in Georgian, and they're like these libertarian group of people. And at some point, they are also split apart because they have the disagreement. And there are a lot of things that I agree with these people, with those people, but it is hard to find one party that we all agree with the most, and they are not associated with anyone and they're new. But the tendencies that I am seeing for the past years, with these different parties being created, different new faces, different new ideas coming into the light, people who have studied abroad or have these new worldviews, I think there is a high chance to have something new, have something refreshing. For we are relatively still a new democratic republic. Since the Soviet Union fell, we have not had a normal government, and we have been just trying to get out of the ruins for a long time. It was just trying to survive and get out of the ruins. So now I think we are starting to, and we will start to get back up on our feet and start to think about other things than just to survive and get out of the ruins of the USSR. Because me personally, I was born and raised in literal darkness without any gas or electricity. I don't know how our parents did it. And the country was in ruins, literally. So getting out of there and having a good government, a normal government at least, that is not trying to push you back into Russia, it is hard to deal with all of that at the same time. So I think now the tendencies that I'm seeing, and now with the people that I'm seeing that are coming forward, that are trying to fight for the country, maybe we will have some new faces. Maybe we will have a party that most of us will agree that, okay, we can trust these people for several years and see how it goes. But we have to make sure that they know that we hold the power, and the power that they take from the people will return to the people eventually. And I think that is an important thing every government has to remember, that they can lose everything in a blink of an eye if they're not smart enough. Otherwise, they're going to do the same thing they're doing in Georgia.
Anna, if I may, what we have seen in Iran happening during the riots is that people started learning how to counteract the police moves, essentially. So they started organizing themselves on social media in a smart way, not to get arrested. And that probably eventually led to the building of some sort of networking organization that might become, I don't know if I'm correct in this view, but might become the fertile ground on top of which a new party, a new organization might rise. Is something happening along those lines in Georgia? Are the riots organized? Are the new parties you're talking about involved actively in organizing the protest?
Yes, so everything that you just listed is happening. We have had this social movements, the shame movement, and there are different kinds of these kind of movements. They have been trying to organize the rallies or the peaceful protests since 2017, I believe, or 16. I was still a bachelor student here in Georgia, and we have been on the street every single year constantly after that. So these are the people that had been trying to protect the rights of regular citizens by not letting the government detain people for stupidest little things that they should not be able to detain people for. And the horrible thing is that the government had been using the laws, the strict laws that are absurdly strict against the people that they didn't like, to discriminate against them. The same thing that they're going to do with this foreign agent law. And we have these movements, with the social movements, and also now, even yesterday and today, the actual organizers of the rallies were from these different parties, that they came together, different political parties, different organizations, and they tried to make something out of it. Because we had seen previously from other riots that having older politicians there, especially the ones associated with the previous governments, did not work. Because people would just not go to the protest just because those people are standing there with the microphones. So now no previous famous politicians are going up with the mics or speaking or doing anything, just not to get people confused that you're not standing on a protest that is dedicated to this party that you don't like so much. I've had friends who are my age that would just not go to a protest just because there was this politician speaking there. And I'm pretty sure they were agreeing with the idea of the protest, but they would just not go because of that. And there were a lot of people like this. So now all of the organizers of these rallies are mostly new parties or NGOs or different organizations who come together, who are young people like my age, younger than me, maybe older than me a bit. And we are trying to make this new net of social movements or something of sort to try to put ourselves back on our feet and try to show the government that just because they have some power, it does not mean they have to and they can use it against us, because it is not okay. You cannot be chasing down your citizens at 7 a.m. in the morning and shooting rubber bullets at them when there are like 50 people outside on the street. So yes, whatever you listed.
So something is boiling, hopefully, under the
Yeah, boiling for a while. I've reached a lot of good results actually with peaceful protests and with protests, with different types of laws and different kinds of things that we wanted our government to change. And the purpose of the government is to serve people. And I don't understand why it should cost us our eyes and our faces to be shot at just to get something to the government that, okay, you're doing something wrong and I do not agree with this, and I pay you, right? We pay the government, and that's
well,
how
ideally speaking, you might be correct, but as you might know, ideals and reality sometimes don't match. Okay, let me stop you there for a second, Anna, because I would like to consult with Michele. I think
I think we have covered quite a bit of territory, and it's very good. Obviously, we'll see how the things evolve, and now that we have some contacts in Georgia, there's also a couple of other people that have contacted us. We'll try to keep an eye and keep the information. Per quelli che chiedevano i sottotitoli in simultanea, per quanto ne so io, con YouTube non siamo in grado di farli in diretta, noi almeno. Cercherò di vedere, ma non mi pare verranno messi dopo. Sì, dopo. Back to English. Yeah, well, we'll see. There is a whole chapter to open up, but it will make the interview a bit too long, which is Europe, right? Your country is there theoretically in the waiting list, but after these episodes, it's not obvious. It's a serious waiting list, but we'll see. Yeah, your last word, and then we'll say goodbye.
I would just like to thank you guys for letting me speak, because other than protesting, this is the best I can do to my country, to spread the word and spread the awareness and to let our Western friends know what we live in and that we just don't like what's going on right now.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna, for your time. Thanks, everybody. And a big hug to our friend Lena Torre from Kherson that today escaped bombing for 2 minutes because they destroyed the missile rocket hit a bus stop where she was literally 3-4 minutes before. So our solidarity. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody's congratulating you for your English, at least those who understand English. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Anna.
Thank you, Luca. Thank
you, Michele. See you next time.
Ciao. Well, and given that we are in direct from Tbilisi, I think the proper way to end is this. Goodbye, everybody.
І служить